It's the best reversing cardiovascular disease diet out there. It's phenomenal. Kempner was a genius. He really was. So what you do is for breakfast, you do 3 servings of fruit. A serving is each. Apple, orange, pear, half a cup of fruit, of little things like strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, or pineapple. You don't want to eat a whole pineapple or a whole mango if it's one of the big, a big papaya, a big papaya. And so it's 3 servings of fruit unless you're diabetic. And if you're diabetic, just use horse sense. If bananas and grapes mess up your blood sugar, don't start off with that right now. Just leave them alone. You can get to them, but just not right now. Eat the other stuff. Type 2. And then 1 cup of brown rice. 1 cup of brown rice. And now at Duke, you could only have the brown rice, nothing else. But sometimes you got to negotiate with people. And Mary Lou put together a recipe that puts scallions and cilantro and some turmeric. It's real pretty and it tastes good. Sometimes you got to negotiate. And so for breakfast, it's 3 servings of fruit and 1 cup of brown rice. Now, when I go to Africa, yes, when in Rome, you got to work with Romans. First thing, mangoes every meal. It ain't changing. I don't care, fruits, vegetables, whatever, you're doing mangoes every meal. Okay. 2, they want more than 3 servings of fruit. So you negotiate. Okay, what if we do 6 half servings? That's okay, they just want more variety. So just visualize this. I don't have, pardon? No, I'll show you this afternoon a picture of what it looks like later. And the next one, I'll show you a picture of what it looks like. I think. No, I won't. But anyway. Picture a plate that has a cup of brown rice in the center that's yellowish in color because of the turmeric, and these 6 servings of fruit around it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. That's breakfast. For the noon meal is a nice big old salad, vegetable salad. Cucumbers, broccoli, cauliflower. Just think of going to some big old salad bar and any kind of raw vegetable. Nice big old salad. But no dressing, no oil, no cheese, no meat, no salt, no fat. You don't want any of those processed fats. No nuts. You can squeeze lemon juice on it, according to Duke. Kempner would allow lemon juice. Again, you got to negotiate with some people, especially men. Women are more prone to accept the lemon juice. Men aren't too keen on that. So I say, what about salsa? You know what salsa is? Like you dip your chips in at the Mexican restaurant. A low sodium salsa. And put that on top. And the men usually go okay with that one. And 1 cup of brown rice. See, brown rice is what Kempner came up as the protein. Research shows that you can eat brown rice, for well over a year as your protein source. We did find that people with gout may have a problem with brown rice, and so we'll go to quinoa. But we like the brown rice because brown rice has brown rice bran. Just like wheat bran, brown rice has something called bran, brown rice bran. And that is very helpful to the heart for cardiovascular issues. Remember, McDougall said that the Kempner diet is the best diet he found for reversing cardiovascular disease. Now, if you're wanting to reverse diabetes, you stop right there. When I went to the clinic, my first 20 years, I never saw 1 case reversing diabetes. Not in 20 years. It was diabetic management through pharmaceuticals. I get to the clinic, we have over a 98% reversal of type 2 diabetes. They're feeding breakfast, they're feeding dinner, and that is it. There's no mid-morning snack, there's no afternoon snack, there's no HS snack, or sleep snack. So I go in to tell the doc, I tell the docs, we got to have breakfast, mid-morning snack, dinner, afternoon snack, supper, because you're not feeding supper, and an HS snack. And they decided to play with me. Why? I said, it's a standard practice. And I said, that's what the American Dietetic Association recommends, so we've got to do it. And they asked me one more question, and I walked out. They said, how many diabetics you reverse where you come from? 0. The proof's in the pudding. That wasn't enough. So I go back to my office and I call up this lady down in Seal, Alabama. What was her name? Dr. Agatha. Dr. Agatha, I know the numbers are good, but this is crazy. She just started laughing. She had a sense of humor. Remember her? She says, Brother Walt, that's how you reverse type 2 diabetes. She says breakfast means break fast from supper to breakfast. But if you want to reverse type 2 diabetes, she says break the fast from the noon meal to breakfast. And it's a whole lot faster. It's okay. It's not going to hurt them. Okay? Well, I trusted her. I knew her. So that's what we did. If you have a person that needs to lose weight, do the same thing. Now, a lot of people do intermittent fasting, and intermittent fasting is very popular right now. They eat dinner and they eat supper, not lunch. Mrs. White said lunch was unhealthy. Did you know that? So did Kellogg say lunch was unhealthy. Do you know what the definition of lunch was back in the 1800s? See, the men were mostly at home working on farms. And so a wife would make big breakfast. Wife would make big dinner. Wife would make big supper. And then when the American Industrial Revolution came, men started going into the cities and working in the factories. Well, wife was not there to make big dinner, so she sent a little meal. And then when they came home, she changed the name of it to dinner in the evening because that was the big name of the big meal, like Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner. You don't eat that at night. You don't say Thanksgiving lunch and Christmas lunch. What was lunch then? If it wasn't in the vocabulary, and if Kellogg and White and other medical folks in that time frame when you read medical books said don't eat lunch, lunch meant little meal. We call it a midnight snack or a snack between meals. Snack back in the 1800s was called lunch. And so little meal, they pulled up to the noon meal to call it little snack, little meal. That's where lunch comes from. So that's why farming folks still say breakfast, dinner, and supper. So with intermittent fasting, they do dinner and supper. But is that a problem? 2 problems. 3 problems if you're dealing with diabetes. Y'all got a book downstairs called Proof Positive. It's a great book. If you haven't read it before, pick it up and look at it. And in there, Neil talks about this research that found if you don't eat breakfast within 2 to 3 hours of awaking, it increases your risk of a heart attack by 150%. Might even affect a stroke too, because of the effects on the platelets. So that's reason enough to eat breakfast first thing in the morning. And then in the same book, Neil talks about this guy by the name of Dr. Koop. And Koop found that when you eat breakfast, it increases metabolism. When you eat dinner, it increases metabolism. But when you eat after 3 in the afternoon, metabolism turns off. And where does that go? In the evening, it doesn't increase metabolism. And where do all them calories go? Do you know George Kim? He's Tina Arnold's sister's husband. Yes. So George called me a couple years ago. He's internal medicine over in Tryon, North Carolina. And George calls me and goes, Walt, there's some really cool stuff. Don't you get excited when you learn new medical stuff? It's just so cool. He says, Walt, this is so cool. He said, we thought that cancer only went through the DNA, but we're now learning it goes through the mitochondria. And he says, if you eat after 2:30 in the afternoon, it transfers through the mitochondria a lot more. then if you don't eat after, if he says, if you don't eat after 2:30 in the afternoon, the mitochondria don't transfer the cancer as well. It's kind of the powerhouse. It looks like a little piece of rice, got little hashes on it. It's kind of like the powerhouse. And George said it even changes even the look of it. Why they didn't figure that out before, I don't know. So there's something about eating breakfast, eating dinner, and then don't eat after 3:30, 2:30 or 3 o'clock. So that's what we did for the folks. Once we got them, if they needed to gain weight, like there are people. I had a guy call me the other day. He's 108. He just made it from 118 to 120 pounds, and he's 6 foot tall. This guy needs supper. Mrs. White said people are men who are hard workers on the farms, and they might need to eat supper. Children might need some supper. And so that's what we did for food. And stay on that program until we get several things happen. They are at ideal body weight. Now, that's a big debate. I had a guy come in yesterday. This guy's a muscular guy. And he found me on, I don't know, social media, and just got in his car and drove up from Marengo, Georgia, up to Newport to see me. And I mean, there's a lot of Fridays I'm gone because I'm traveling. So fortunately, I was there. And this guy's a muscular guy. And so when I went to look up his ideal body weight, I started with what Mayo Clinic recommends in body mass, BMI, body mass index. And you should have seen his face when I told him he needed to be 185 pounds. I mean, it's like, he's way more than that. I had a guy come in. This guy broke the Guinness Book of World Record every year, at least once or twice. Super strong. He's like my age or a little older now. 20 years ago, that was old. But he's like a bull. I mean, like a bull. And when he came in, I went to look at his BMI, looked at his height, looked at his weight. He was off the chart. His weight was off the chart at his height. But if you went up to him and you pinched him, it was like pinching a pig. I mean, you couldn't pinch him. I mean, he was just muscle. So is there another tool to use? Yes, sports medicine uses percent body fat. And so I'll get people to come and they'll say, especially the ladies, oh, I'm just big boned. Okay, so let's go percent body fat. I ain't going to argue on that. Don't argue weight with ladies. And so, but you can go to percent body fat and see where you are. You can go to most any gym. They got scales or a thing you can hang on to that shoots current. The most accurate way was you could, immerse a person in a tube, look at displacement, fluid displacement, and then remember when we used to pinch people, fat calipers? We don't pinch people anymore. And so now we just use those machines that sends current up through it. But if you want to look at that, that's going to be accurate. I like sports medicine side on the percent body fat. So you stay on the restoring program until you get all the rust off, the pain on. You got a new seat on it. The engine's running good. You got new tires on it. Once it's restored, then you can go to maintenance. So you stay until you have ideal body weight. Number 2, if they're diabetic, they've got an A1C of 5.6 or less. They have a morning fasting of 100 or less. If they're hypertensive, then they have a normal blood pressure. Or let's say they have high cholesterol. They have high triglycerides. Until the body comes back to where it belongs, you stay on this without meds. Without meds. The last time I was in Africa, I had a lady come in. Her blood sugar was right at 400. She needed assistance with ambulation, walking. She was on insulin. She was on metformin. And she, within 2 weeks, she was off her insulin, off her metformin, and her glucose was 115. 2 weeks. And she was ambulating on her own. The time before that I was there, I had another lady, she was right at the same amount, around 400, insulin, metformin, and within 2 weeks, she's at 125. I'll take 125 from 400. Off her insulin, off her metformin. Had they reversed? No, because they were not at ideal body weight yet. We were managing it through this program. I had a guy, this is my father. He calls me. I was in North Carolina, and I was getting ready to turn into Fletcher to go over to the little health food store there in Fletcher. Dad calls me. I'm still on the interstate, getting ready to come off. He said, I went to my cardiologist in Nashville. He said that I only got less than 2 months, 3 months to live. He said, my cardiologist says I won't make 3 months. I said, okay, I'll be over there. So I went over and I shared him this. Dad was on this for just 1 month shy of 6 years. He died of COVID. I'm sure his cardiac didn't help with that or whatever. I don't know what happened because they wouldn't even let us in the hospital. So he was there for 7 days and no one could even go see him. But I asked him several times. I say, Dad, are you not bored of this diet? See, his ejection fraction was 20, and we got him up to 30 with this diet, and he wouldn't go any higher, but 30 was better than 20, and he lived almost 6 years on the 30. He stayed on the diet. And I said, are you not, because he didn't go higher, we stayed on the Duke diet. I said, are you not bored of this food? He said, yeah. He said, but I'd rather see my kids and my grandkids and my great-grandkids than what my tongue says. So it's taught me that Kempner's diet, at least for 1 month shy of 6 years, safe. So that's how long you stay on the restoring program diet-wise. And then I moved from that diet to the Cornell University diet. Cornell University, Cambridge University. And that diet is what you watched when you watched Forks Over Knives, Plant Pure Nation. That is a whole food, plant-based diet with variety. And Campbell is very clear, variety. Harvard now is very clear, variety. You know, we're not dogs. We don't want same old, same old. This is an important story to tell y'all that Campbell told us in class. It's been long enough. I can start drinking. And this is an important story for any parent or grandparent. Campbell did the China study to prove that we need more dairy and we need more meat. He had the support of the American Dairy Association, and the support of the meat folks. He had the support of Cornell University. Again, Campbell, for most of his growing up years, was in Southwest Virginia and on a farm, dairy and beef cow. And so he had this hypothesis that we need more meat and more dairy to be healthy. So he goes into this China study. And he told us it wasn't long. The numbers start coming back, and he told us, he said, I hired the best, what are the guys that keep up with numbers? There's another word. What? Agronomer? It's something the insurance company people use. Yeah, that's it. He said, I hired the best one of those guys that started doing that. And he said, the numbers came back just the opposite of what his hypothesis was. And he said, I had to figure out what I was going to do. Do I play with the numbers? We've taken stats. We learned how to do that in school. That's probably the only thing I really learned out of stats is don't trust stats. And then he said, because see, he wanted to look right. Don't we want to look right? He had the support of his financial support was there, and his bosses were happy with what he was doing. And if he tells them the truth, they're not going to be happy. And he doesn't meet what his hypothesis was. And this is the important part. He said, I could hear my father saying, you ever have a mind's eye? You got a mind's ear. Can you hear your grandma saying something to you? Or like, don't you touch that. It's going to spoil your meal or whatever. He said, I could hear my father say, Colin, never lie. Colin, never lie. And because of that, we have a word called plant-based. T. Colin Campbell coined plant-based. We have the China study as we see it today. We have Plant Pure Nation. We have this tremendous research validating, not that we need something to validate what God said, but because this man listened to what his father had said, and his father was dead. Isn't that cool? Of how powerful we can be to our children and our grandchildren. So, what is that diet? It's a whole food, plant-based diet with variety. Now, can you find that diet anywhere else? Is that a new thing? Can we go back to the food after the fall? The food after the fall. See, in the garden, they ate fruit. But after the fall, remember, they started eating vegetables. That is a diet that God gave Adam and Eve when they left the Garden of Eden. And science has proved it. And when did people start doing meat? How many years later was that? Around 1,500 years later. And Mrs. White said it was for two reasons. One, there wasn't as much available food, but she said it was to shorten their lives. Now Cornell found, which now Cornell has been proved wrong, but when I took courses from Campbell, the research showed that if you eat a whole food plant-based diet, it will extend your life an average of 15 years. A new study came out just recently saying that was wrong. It's actually 20-some years. Even better. And so that as we look at what kind of food to feed ourselves, did you know that Harvard says that the brain, when we eat processed food, the brain has a hard time getting rid of the waste? Isn't that amazing? So when you eat the Twinkie, when you eat the whatever in the bag, that your brain has a hard time getting rid of that waste. See, the rocks are crying out. They really are. So that's the nutrition component. Exercise. When Kempner looked at exercise, he looked at exercise for kids, humans. And he looked at little humans and he looked at big humans. And little humans were having exercise recess in the morning, recess after dinner, recess in the afternoon. They went home and played and had chores. Well, that's been a while. But 4 times a day, exercise. So Kempner then decides, what if I take this model that we do with children and apply it to adults? And so then he exercised his adults 4 times a day. Remarkable outcomes. Remarkable outcomes. Around 21 years ago, 22 years ago, I mentioned to my friend, he was at Loma Linda at the time, and I said, I've noticed that when people come in the morning and let's say they got a blood sugar of 180, 170, 190, and I send them for a power walk for 30 minutes. They come back, they'll probably be in the teens or the 20s. 110, yes. 110s, 120s. And he says, that's interesting. 2 years later, I saw him at ASI, and he said, Walt, we did some research on what you told us. He said, we found that a 20-minute power walk lowers the blood sugar more than 1 shot of insulin. Is that not cool? This was Loma Linda. A 20-minute power walk lowers the blood sugar more than one shot of insulin. So go back to what Kempner found, this genius at Duke University. Exercise 4 times a day is a whole lot better than 4 shots of insulin a day. Not that you're going to do that, but with a person on the pump. So exercise is huge. We find that when you exercise, you increase the brain's processing speed. According to Psychology Today, you increase it by you increase the processing speed significantly for 2 hours. Exercise 4 times a day. You've increased that processing speed. If you get on a mini trampoline will increase the pumps on the lymphatic system tenfold. It increases your white count. If you bounce on it for 5 minutes, it will increase the white count 3-fold for 1 hour. So just bounce on it if you have cancer every hour on the hour. So if you bounce on the trampoline, it will increase the lymphatic flow tenfold. It increases the immune system 3-fold for 1 hour. But when you bounce on it, it increases the lymphatic flow tenfold. So you get a bounce for an hour? No. So you bounce on it for 5 minutes, and that will give you an hour of 3-fold. Now, the time that you're bouncing on it, you increase the pumps by tenfold while you're jumping on it. Now, when you go to space, NASA found that astronauts have bone density loss because they have weightlessness. And when you have weightlessness, you then have bone density loss. So the best tool that NASA found to put a person on when they come back from space to increase bone density is a mini trampoline. Isn't that cool? Now be careful. So I was at that same conference that I met Campbell, actually the same time I met Campbell back years ago before I went and took school from him. This guy by the name of Harold Cherney. Remember Cherney? Yes. Y'all got that Natural Remedies Encyclopedia book? His name's on the front of that. So Cherney talked me into getting 3 trampolines for our gym. We had one, but it was an old one. It was a Montgomery Ward one. Just an old, not a good one. The springs were like a rectangle. They didn't taper at the ends. And Cherney says, throw that thing away. It stops too abruptly. It stops both high and low too abrupt. And so I got 3 in. The next day I put our patients on it. The next day, every one of them were sick with flu-like symptoms. Felt like they'd been beat by a baseball bat. So I called Cherney. I said, Cherney, I did what you told me. Everybody's in bed, sick with flu-like symptoms. What's going on? And what do you think he did? He started laughing. If you knew Cherney, he laughed. And I said, Cherney, why are you laughing? He said, what'd you do? I said, 15 minutes, BID, twice a day. He just started laughing again. I said, Cherney, why are you laughing? He said, I did the same thing. He says, the people who come to you are sedentary. And he says, you just crank their lymphatic pumps on wide open. And their liver couldn't handle it. He said, what's called a Herxheimer syndrome. Y'all know what a Hertz syndrome is. Healing crisis. He says, here's what you do. You'll never have another problem. He says, do 5 minutes 3 times a day for a week. The next week, do 10 minutes 3 times a day. And then you can, for a week, and then you can increase it. You'll never have a problem. And that was back in 2001. And I've never had another problem with it. It worked very well. It's a great tool to use. Now, they didn't have rebounders back when this was written. But when this was written, we were told that what was the best exercise? Walking. Yeah. She says it puts into action every organ in the body. Walking is tremendous. Yes, you can jog and you can row and there's all kinds of exercise you can do. Never would I have thought to, who grew up on a farm? Anybody? Okay. Would you have ever thought to tell your father or grandfather or great-grandfather they need to go to the gym and work out? Yeah, that's right. I mean, they used post-hole digging. They were throwing bales of hay, clearing land. Yeah. They didn't need to go to the gym. They exercised. They had weight-bearing exercise to have lymphatic flow. They had cardiac. So we're different today. When I go to Rwanda, when you go outside Rwanda, it's amazing. These guys, they're thin as could be, but you know what? They have so much strength. They can have, stuff up to the fan almost, wood stacked on their bicycle as they're pushing it, riding it, and then going up the mountain. They're pushing it up. Their sense of balance is huge. But let them move into Kigali and get a desk job. They've done this. Their blood sugar's gone up. Their blood pressure's gone up. Their cholesterol's gone up. They now eat the affluent diet. And it's having tough times. That's why I go and teach them there. Water. Water's huge. Water is, I partook in a study for 3 weeks on water. It was other stuff. We were doing labs, different kinds of labs. And one of the labs we did was hydration. And we monitored our hydration 4 times a day, 7 days a week for 3 weeks. Amongst other things, but that's one of the things, that's what I'm speaking on right now. The first week, everybody in the course was dehydrated. Every participant was dehydrated. The second week, most everybody was. The third week, nobody was. So here's what happened. The first week, the professor just had us drink however we did. Most everybody was dehydrated. The second week, he had us do something that looks at something called free flow. When you drink more than 2 to 3 ounces of water at a given time, it goes to free flow when you urinate it off. So if I took this bottle, which is 16 point something ounces, and I just chugged it and drank all of it, which is fine first thing in the morning when you need to free flow, but the rest of the day, I drink 2 to 3 ounces is all I'm going to keep. The rest of it, I just urinated off. You drink 8 ounces, 5 to 6 ounces are just gone. They're not doing you any good. You're wasting it. And now you got to go to the bathroom a whole bunch of times. And that can discourage people from drinking water. All I do is run and go to the bathroom. Well, it could be how you're drinking it. So what we did is the second week, we just did, University of California at Davis found it takes a half a gallon of water to run a 5-year-old. Now, we're bigger than when we were 5 years old, up to 118 pounds. No, 128 pounds. Over 128 pounds is body weight divided by 2. And that's pretty common out there today. You still have some that are just hanging on to 8 glasses, but you're seeing this a lot now, body weight divided by 2, that many ounces of water a day. But that's to sit on the couch. That's not to be active, working in the garden. I'm a firefighter, so the state of Tennessee tells me over at Bell Buckle, I'm supposed to drink a gallon of water a day if I'm going to go fight a house fire. So we did that the second week. Most everybody was dehydrated. So the third week, the professor had us, he taught us about this thing. We learned the week before how much to drink, but he didn't teach us about, I'd already learned about free flow, but sometimes you know how sometimes you know something and then finally the light bulb comes on? I've known this for years, but sometimes you just don't put 2 and 2 together to equal 4. You just don't do it. You just don't think about it. And this guy who figured this out was a physicist who was friends with Einstein. Well, that kind of dates how long we've known it. And this guy says, he's a PhD in physics. He found that if you drink more than 2 to 3 ounces, it goes into free flow. So what he had us do was this. That's it. 3 to 4 times every half hour. That's it. 3 to 4 times every half hour. Except, this is interesting, 15 minutes before we ate, while we ate, to an hour after we ate. Doesn't that sound familiar? Interesting. We did that the third week. Everybody was hydrated. We were doing it several ways. We were checking conductivity. You can do urine conductivity, which measures the electrical current. the electrical current in the body. Let's go back to chemistry class. So in chemistry class, the professor took a flask, and he took a light bulb, plugged it in. You had your neutral, your hot wire went into the flask. It did not come on because there was no way for current to go across. He then filled it with distilled water. It still wouldn't come on because there was no mineralization that caused the electrons to move back and forth. Then the professor started pouring in salt. And as your salinity comes up, now you have electron movement, and the light bulb got brighter the higher the salinity. Then the professor went and poured distilled water in there again. Salinity goes down, the light bulb got dimmer. And what they found is the current in our body is determined by two major things: the amount of water and the amount of minerals, predominantly salt. So when you're dehydrated, it's just like that flask. Too much minerals, too much salt, and that makes the current go up. If you drink too much water, then that's going to flush out the minerals or diminish them or dilute them. Current goes down. And so that's how you measure, is measuring conductivity. Okay, so this is, yes, you can do skin turgor, but they tell us today that's not accurate on geriatrics. They actually have told us in EMS to stop doing that for years. I'd say they probably told us almost 20 years ago to quit doing that in EMS. Still, I see it done in acute care, but EMS, we stopped it 20 years ago. There was a study done back in the early 2000s in Europe, and it was a very expensive study. It was $700 to measure this one lab test to check hydration. That's an expensive lab test back in 2000. And they compared that hydration test, lab test, with another test, and they found they were pretty well equal. And the other test was the color and the smell of urine. And so you can look. You want that strawish color, yes, or that light color, yes. And you don't want that odor. And so that's a very good test. Oh, that's right. You're going to spill it over. So you've got to look through the day of what your average is, because you're going to have a person that just drinks a bunch, and then they may urinate down a ways that they haven't drank a whole lot, then they may have that color change. So you want to look at that urine throughout the day and the smell. So water's important. Water's huge. It's huge. Interesting, going back to exercise, Psychology Today 2 years ago had an article where the neuroscientists around the world said that the best medication for the brain was exercise. Isn't that cool? That is so cool. Sunshine is important. We're told that sunshine is 10 times more effective exercise outside versus in the gym by exercise physiologists. And numerous exercise physiologists have come to that conclusion. Well, it only makes sense. You know, fresh air, the sky's blue, ground's green, it's calming colors. I'm not all into color therapy, but we do know those two colors are calming, pastel specific. There's just so many benefits of sunshine. Vitamin D. But don't trust vitamin D on how much you take. I had a lady come into me and her vitamin D was 12. Now, when I got out of school, they told us vitamin D over 32 is dangerous. Can you imagine? But today your labs will say what? What? It says 30 to 100 is normal. Arvo, your friend Arvo will say to his patients he doesn't want it below 60 for cognitive function. Ted Watkins, surgeon up in DC, says for bone density, for immune system, he doesn't want to see his patients below 80. There's a doctor down in Atlanta, when she's treating cancer, she takes you to 205. And people go, oh no, you're going to get kidney stones. Well, that's only a small percentage ever get it. But she says if they do get it, she says stage 4 cancer versus kidney stone, she says I can fix that a whole lot easier. So this lady comes in. She's taken. Now here's the key. She's Caucasian. So that tells you something right there. When I was in Africa last time, I took Irvin Davis from South Georgia. He's a black physician. And as he told the black physicians over there in Rwanda, he says, we have sunglasses on our skin. And he says it takes 6 times more exposure to get the same amount of vitamin D as it does Walt. So this lady's Caucasian. So that means she doesn't need a whole lot. So she's taken 5,000 IUs, she's Caucasian, and she works in landscaping. And her blood level's 12. So we go to 10,000. So we go to 10,000 a day, 5,000 twice a day, for 3 months, and she goes to 17. 17 or 18, I believe it's 17. And then I called my friend up in D.C. and I said, "What do you think?" We used to work together. He said, "Go 20,000 BID twice a day. That's 40,000." For 3 months, she went to 24. Pardon? That's correct. So we're trying to figure out what is going on. And this has been a few years ago. He calls me about noon. He says, "Walt, did you see that study just came out on magnesium?" I said, "Yes. This morning I saw it." He said, "Go to bowel tolerance." I said, "That's what I was thinking." We went to bowel tolerance. She went to 97. She didn't have enough magnesium to help her absorb it. And so bowel tolerance means you go to where you can get a loose stool, bring it back to where you don't have a loose stool. Also, K2 is important. And then you look at serotonin. Serotonin is so important for brain function. Let's go back to Africa. Who's read the book by Dr. Keim called Sunshine, I think it was? Anybody read that book? It's out of print. It's a great little book. And in there, Keim talks about there's this country in Africa that got SAD. SAD. I mean, you get that in Alaska or Canada, but not Africa. So they bring in this expert, and he looks at him, and he says, "Why are you wearing your sunglasses?" That's our new uniform policy. Well, see, sunglasses prevent the ultraviolet light from coming into the eye, which stimulates the pineal gland, when converts the tryptophan from your flaxseed this morning into serotonin. He says, "Take them sunglasses off." Boom, SAD went away. So if you're outside wearing sunglasses or glasses that change, it could have an effect on your serotonin. But Walt, I work outside all day long in landscaping. Okay, most of the day wear your sunglasses, but make sure in the morning and the afternoon there's some time when the sun's not really bright that you're getting some sun exposure through the eyes so you can stimulate the pineal gland to convert the tryptophan into the serotonin. Very important. Temperance, making the right decision. I mean, it's a real easy one, isn't it? Just don't do drugs, don't do alcohol, don't do tobacco, and you've got all the temperance, right? And then it's moderation in all things, right? Moderation in cocaine? So moderation in the good stuff, total abstinence in the bad stuff. What about music? Can music hurt your brain? Hurt your body? Can TV? How about social media? Have y'all had Redsmith here? Scott Redsmith? Redsmith? He's good. He can tell you about media on the mind or media on the brain and the effects there. Huge. I was flying went from Knoxville to Atlanta plumb across the U.S., and it wasn't long. We get up in the air, and there's this guy. I sit in the back of the plane, and he was up one row on the aisle. I was on the aisle, one row behind him across, and he's in his 40s with a little Mac computer, and he's bouncing like a 7 or 8-year-old in his seat, just bouncing, playing games. I mean, games that were cutting people's throats, stabbing people, blowing people up. One of them games. And he did it the whole way across the U.S. till we got over on the other side. Was that affecting that man? How about reality? Could he sometimes have a problem with reality? He could. So there's a lot of things that we got to look at. How about gossiping? Gossip, evil team, much unhappiness it brings. If you can't say something nice, don't talk at all, is my advice. So there's a number of things that making the right decision is important. Temperance. Fresh air. We're fortunate we live here. We're very fortunate. We're not in LA, China. Fresh air is important. But it's not just fresh air. It's also, how do you breathe? Do you breathe like a chihuahua? Or do you have diaphragmatic breathing? I was teaching this in a school just a couple weeks ago. And fortunately, God gave me a good example. I was teaching kids about the benefits of fresh air, and I brought a little boy up who's probably 6 or 7 years old. Put him on the table, and I went and got a book, and I stuck it on his stomach. And guess what happened? Perfect. And I was able to show the other kids diaphragmatic breathing. Who plays a wind instrument? What do you play? French horn. Can you play a high note without diaphragmatic breathing? How about a mezzo-soprano? Can you hit a high note without diaphragmatic breathing? No. You got to have diaphragmatic breathing. Mrs. White talks about diaphragmatic breathing. We've got to, not breathing like a chihuahua. It's important. She says you will die quicker when you have shallow breathing. Rest. That's a hard one. That's my hardest one. There's a lot to do. Is there any research there? Well, inspiration says the hours before midnight are worth twice the hours after midnight. Harvard is now finding, well, let me go back. When I was in school and I took anatomy and we were studying lymphatic system, there was a big old white place where the brain is because we didn't know the brain had a lymphatic system. Around 2013, 14, it was discovered. It's called the glymphatic system. You know Brad MD? Brad's the one who taught me about this. And back around 14 is when Brad taught me. And again, it's one of them exciting things. You find out something, Brad goes, Walt, I got to tell you something. This is so cool. And they found that around 9 o'clock at night, your brain does a deep clean to 10. And from 10 to midnight, it does a thorough cleanse. But you got to be asleep. At first, they thought only exercise kicked that on. Sleep kicked that on. But later on, about 2 years later, Harvard said, though we thought that the only way of turning on the glymphatic system was by those hours of sleep before midnight, we have found the exercise also turns on the glymphatic system. But, like bold red letters, you got to do both of them to get the full benefit, not just exercise or be asleep early. You got to do both of them to get the full benefit. And so as you look at sleep, there's 3 major components of sleep and that I found, and you can go a whole lot deeper. But I find that 8 hours of sleep is important. Go to the Breezeville-Belloc study again. At 9 years, they found 7 hours was the peak. But when they then took it on to 15 years, they found no, 8 hours. If you get less than 8 hours, you die quicker. If you get more than 9 hours, you die quicker. The last I read on Mayo was 7 hours. Harvard is more of a 7.5 hours, but they're flirting with 8. I think we're going to see Harvard go to 8 pretty soon. The hours before midnight, with the glymphatic system that Harvard is talking about and other universities are talking. That's another part, is getting your hours of sleep before midnight. But then the issue of REM sleep. You get the guy who wakes up 5, 6, 7 times a night because of prostate. You get the lady who wakes up and she's worrying about her grandkids. She's worrying about her kids. And she can't fall back asleep. She finally falls back asleep and she wakes up again, and now she starts worrying about the kids again. Y'all know what I'm talking about. We need that REM sleep. And what's happening is we're waking up and not getting long enough sleep to get that non-REM, then REM, to where it's effective like it needs to be. And especially since COVID have I seen a problem. Before COVID, back when we acquired the store 20 years ago, our biggest things that we worked on was female hormones and stress. That was the top 3 things. Still an issue, still work a lot with female hormones and stress, but sleep is the big one that we work with now. It's enough that Harvard's talking about it, National Geographic is talking about it. Harvard found there's a number of things. Is the room tidy? Is the room, cool? Are the lights off? Is the no noise? There's a number of things. Get you a little piece of paper and write down what you're thinking about so the paper remembers it and you don't have to remember it. But what happened with COVID is people turned their bedrooms into a multi-purpose room. My sister-in-law works at Vanderbilt. She's still working at home, still working out of her bedroom. People turned it into the office. They turned it into the dining room. They turned it into the entertainment room. They turned it into the library. They turned it into the family room where everybody comes and sits on the bed and talks. And both Harvard and National Geographic came to the same conclusion. When you go to the bathroom, you don't think about eating pizza, right? You know what that bathroom's for. And both of them said that the bedroom should only be for 3 things, and that is changing your clothes, sleeping, and relations between spouses. That's it. Don't wake up in the middle of the night and think, maybe I'll do the entertainment and turn the TV on, turn the radio on. Or maybe I'll turn into the dining room and I'll go get and start eating food. Or maybe I'll start reading, or whatever it may be, or get up and start doing some work. That room is only for those 3 things and those 3 things only. Retrain the brain. The brain's trainable. I remember we used to do potty training with ladies. It was actually the care plan, potty training. The nurse would take them in the bathroom, and she was having some issues of incontinency, and the nurse would have her sit on the toilet, turn on the water, and she'd feel the urge, and she'd start to urinate, and then the nurse would say, "Miss Jones, you feel that?" "Yeah." Well, go home, and every 2 hours, go to the bathroom, turn the water on, and feel for that right before you urinate, and retrain your brain what that feeling is, and know when you get that feeling, you need to go to the bathroom. That's not a new thing. Kellogg did that. Kellogg said that we should be as the natives regarding constipation. He said that when you get the urge, go. Don't wait till it's break time. Don't worry till you finish the project. Teachers have a hard time. When we were kids, teachers could leave the room, go to the bathroom. They can't do that no more. They got to stay in there. If you're a checker at Walmart, you can't just say, "Oh, excuse me, just a minute, I got to go to the bathroom." No, you can't do that. Or you're driving a tractor trailer, you can't. No. And so you wait till it's time to change fuel. You wait till the break or whatever. And Kellogg said that your brain starts ignoring the urge. You train your brain to ignore the urge. And then, therefore, the brain thinks, "Oh, that's not important because he told me to ignore it." So Kellogg says we can retrain the brain by going every time we have the urge, and we retrain it to identify that, oh, that's an important urge, and not just, we didn't notice it because it was like turning off the hearing. Well, the same thing is true in sleep. We got to train the brain what that bedroom's for. We got to train the brain how to sleep. Now, We've talked the 8 laws of health. How do you establish a lifestyle program? Implement those 8 laws. The last one is trusting God. And that's so important. I mean, we've got it on our money. We've got it on our police cars. We've got it on our fire trucks. But we don't have it on us. That's where the power comes from. And let me cover one more thing. Because I'm going to have to get water. Fasting. And I learned this from an old Baptist preacher years ago. There's a radio station in North Carolina called Billy Graham Radio Station. It's on Black Mountain. And this old Baptist preacher was preaching when they had good music. They had like George Beverly Shea and stuff like that. They ain't worth listening to anymore. This old Baptist preacher was talking about fasting. And he talked about, yes, there's physiological benefits of fasting. And then there was people in the Bible that fasted. And Esther and Jesus and a number of people fasted for spiritual reasons. But then I got to looking. Adam and Eve. Well, Adam not really. Eve, yes. Adam was not tempted, I don't believe, by the fruit. Adam's problem is he loved his wife more than he loved God. And he knew she was going to die. And so he committed suicide by eating of the fruit. You've got Esau. Did he have an appetite problem? How about the children of Israel in the desert? Flesh pots of Egypt? What about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and Daniel? Were they tempted with diet? They were. They overcame. What about Christ? Was he tempted with diet? Turn the rocks into bread? Mrs. White said that appetite is Satan's ultimate weapon. Appetite is Satan's ultimate weapon. She says if you can overcome appetite, you can overcome any other temptation. The guy I was talking with yesterday, he says, I never thought of appetite being a temptation. Yeah, it's a temptation. So let's go back to anatomy class. Did you know that you have a no muscle? Did y'all learn about the no muscle in anatomy? The NO? We've got a no muscle. It's in the brain. It says no. And if you can say no to appetite, you can say no to most anything else. If you say no to, the more you say no to appetite by fasting or making the right choices, we strengthen that no muscle in the brain to say no for other temptations. To where Mrs. White said that no muscle, she didn't call it a no muscle, but she says you can say no to every other temptation when we say no to appetite. So I hope this was beneficial. It wasn't it covered some prescriptive items, but mostly we talked about physiology. And if you apply the physiology, then it will make a huge difference. Well, what are we going to take, 5 minutes? Okay, then we'll come back. What we're going to talk about is how to develop. This morning at Sabbath School, we learned that every church is to have a medical missionary training program. We learned that every one of y'all is to be a medical missionary. That is God's expectation. So that's what we're going to talk about in 5 minutes, how to do that. She has what? Could she do a full spectrum light that Neil talks about? Well, there's one. It may be. It's the full spectrum. Neil sells it on his website. They use it up in. It might work, and it may not cause problems with her. See if I would find out the light that Neil uses for depression. Then ask the optometrist if that light would cause problems, if there's any research. You're welcome. Oh, good. we're going to sing a song. Yes, ma'am. Okay, can we get it on after this one? Because these folks are... Okay, let's go ahead and start. Let's stand up and sing a song. Let's sing a song. Some of you may know it, so we're going to sing it twice. If you don't know it, you'll know it the second time. Are you ready? We're in church, so we're not going to march. Okay. It's called A Merry Heart Doeth Good Like a Medicine. Do y'all know that song? Okay. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine. Like a medicine is a merry heart. But a broken spirit dry up the bones. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine. Okay, now everybody knows it, right? Okay, let's do it. You ready? A merry heart doeth good like a medicine. Like a medicine is a merry heart. But a broken spirit dry up the bones. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine. Okay, let's sit down. I was in New York at Camp Berkshire, and we were having about a 4-day seminar with mostly physicians out of New York City, Dr. Agatha and several of us, and we were singing this song as people would come in. And this lady stands up, and she was back here in the big hall, and she says, I need to tell you something. She said, my specialty is bone marrow. I'm a physician, and that's what I work with only. She says, when we are happy, our bone marrow produces a chemical that improves our immune system. She said, but if we're not happy, the bone marrow does not do that. Isn't that cool? Yeah. All right. Can we go to that PowerPoint? So this one we're going to use a PowerPoint and see if we can do it here. How to develop an effective health outreach program. Well, this morning we talked about that. And so what I'd like to talk about is how do we do it? And again, look at a couple items that looks at why we do it. Next. We're going to look at a few things here again. What's our mission? We should ever remember that the object of the medical missionary work is to point sin-sick men and women to the man of Calvary who take away the sin of the world. Again, in corporate America, everything we do is mission. Who knows what Joint Commission is? Yes. So when Joint Commission would come in, Joint Commission likes asking your staff, can you tell us what your mission is? Behind every name badge was our mission statement. And so our staff would go, oh, yes, we would be glad to. We want to make sure we get it so right, we're going to read it to you. And they would read it to them. I never got dinged on points on my staff knowing what mission statement was. Next. Physical healing is bound up with the gospel commission. In the work of the gospel, teaching and healing are never to be separated. Next. I'm going fast here. We talked about these this morning. The goal of the health ministry work is not a one-time event. And that's a challenge. I remember I was speaking to a guy. He was a vice president of the General Conference. Had just retired. And he said, let me tell you what medical missionary work is. He says that's going door to door and just handing something out and letting the Holy Spirit take it from there. He says it's having a one-time health fair and letting the Holy Spirit take it from there. He's never gardened. He's never grown a garden. If you remember, Jesus said we're to be like farmers. And when you grow something, you've got to prepare the soil. You've got to plow it. You got to disc it. You got to pick rocks and sticks and disc it again and pick rocks and sticks and disc it again and pick rocks and sticks until you don't have rocks and sticks, or a lot of them. And then what do? Then you're going to plant. You're going to water if it's a small garden. You're going to pick the weeds. You're going to, take care of that garden the whole time. And when you're doing evangelism, it's not a one-time event. It's friendship evangelism. It is to develop individual relationships, trust, through multiple exposures over time, in order to gain trust and healing, and the introduction of the individual to Christ's love and salvation. That's our mission. It's not just a one-time thing. Many times they say, "Oh, we have a health outreach program. Once a year we have a health fair." Well, what else do you do? Do you follow up? Do you see them ever again? No. It needs to be a program where you're strategically figuring a way to get people to the hub, the headquarters. And this building is your headquarters. To bring them to the headquarters in order to do more events. And that's what we're going to talk about. Next. Who's responsible? Next. Every church. Next. Every church member and minister. Next. Every member. Next. We read these this morning. Next. It says, do medical missionary work. Do it. Thus you will gain access to the hearts of the people. Have you ever had your parents say, just do it? Or have you told your kids, just get up and do it? You can do it. Next. You will find that relieving their physical suffering gives an opportunity to minister to their spiritual needs. Next. The Lord will give you success in this work, for the gospel is the power of God unto salvation. When it is interwoven with the practical life, when it is lived and practiced. Next. 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 Okay, where do we start? Pray, pray, pray. God's asked us to do it, so ask Him what He wants us to do. And what does He want you to do? Everybody's different. If it comes to doing cooking classes, I'm not that guy. It's hers. She can cook. I can't cook. Yes, I know how to cook. My grandma taught me to cook. My great-grandmother taught me to cook. My mama taught me to cook. Did you know what they taught me? East Tennessee cooking. I can cook bad stuff. I know how to fix bad stuff. So look at what talents God gave you. Don't go and decide I'm going to have a bread baking class and you've never cooked bread before and you're going to learn with them. No, don't do that. That don't work out good. Next. God desires that now, as never before, the minds of the people shall be deeply stirred to invitation, the great temperance question, and the principles underlying true health reform. True. So could there be false health reform? If it says true. Next slide. Is there true money? I have a friend, he owns a bunch of banks. And he very quickly will tell me the first thing he does in teaching his tellers is study the real money. A number of years ago, I went and had deposited some money at the bank. The next morning, the banker calls me and she says, Walt, bring me a $100 bill. I said, for what? Just don't be taking people $100 bills. I said, why? She says, you brought me a fake one yesterday. I said, no, I didn't. I used my pen. She says, throw it away, get down here and bring me a $100 bill. So I went down there with $100. 20s probably. And I said, what's going on? She says, this is a fake $100 bill. I said, I used the pen on it. She says, there's something in most every kitchen you can put on that, and it will make that pen work. She said, throw the pen away. Okay, so I said, so how do you know? She says, you go up and you scratch his shoulder. And if it's rough, it's real. And then see that blue, where the blue, then it goes to the other part and it kind of goes underneath it? She says, take you a toothpick or a writing pen and stick underneath there. Counterfeits don't do that. And she says, over there, you can't see it here, but there's on that upper in that clear part, if you hold it against the window, you can see a little hologram in there. She says, I can't do that either. About a year ago, I went down to the bank and I took some money. A new teller comes up to me and she says, this is fake. And it's like she thought she was a law enforcement officer. I said, no, it's real. She says, it is fake. The machine said so. I said, go use another machine. It's real. It's fake. I said, go use another machine. You know. So she went and used another machine. She came back. She says, how did you know it was real? I said, because the lady who used to be the bank manager here taught me years ago how to tell a real one. She just hadn't learned. So if you know the real stuff, then you can then identify the fake. And there's a lot of fake stuff out there. So what do you look at? Next. That's where you start. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. How did Jesus heal? There's 29 times that Jesus healed people individually. Now, there's a lot of times he healed a mess of people. But individual people, there was 29 times. But look how he healed. What was his manner? Next. This is a good book. This book changed my career. Next. I was talking to this lady out of New York City. I worked with her on a ministry. And she said that she got on a plane in New York City, flying first class, sits down. You know how you go in, you sit there first, or they do, and sit there first, and while you're still out there waiting, and then you go in and you pass them up while they're sitting there drinking something or something. And she sits down against the window, and the man who was sitting on the aisle, because there's just 2 seats in first class in each row or each side, this man pulls out a book and starts to read. And she goes, oh, you're Seventh-day Adventist. He says, no. Why do you ask? Well, he was reading this book. Guess who it was? It was Dr. Oz. Next book. Temperance. Excellent book. Next one. Medical Ministry. Next. Mind, Character, and Personality. 2 volumes. If you want to study mind function, what's that? 2 volumes. It's 2. Excellent. Excellent 2-volume set. It was actually in that book, I think around page 60, 61, where I learned that in order to treat the body, you must treat the brain. Before you treat the brain, you have to treat the blood. Before you treat the blood, you have to, it's through what you eat and what you drink. It was in that book. Excellent 2 volumes if you want to learn mind and character and personality. Next book. There's The Blueprint. Who's read this one? It's a good book. Next one. Anybody heard of her? Excellent book. Yeah, I really miss her. She was a tremendous resource. We would go and teach, and we'd have a round table for the last class. We'd have different presenters, and we'd sit up there. And they'd ask questions, and she wouldn't answer nobody. And then finally we go, okay, Dr. Agatha, answer the question. And she'd answer it. And then, they'd ask questions, and finally another hard question comes up. Okay, Dr. Agatha, answer the question. She'd answer it. She's had so much experience, but she was so humble. One time, I remember we were at a conference, and it was, and this, she was teaching on nutrition, and this physician raises his hand, and he says, but Dr. Agatha, what you just said is not what you said in your book. She says, I know, I was wrong. She says, one of my therapists figured it out and told me, and I checked into it. They were right, I was wrong. Just humble as could be. You don't normally see that. Next one. Y'all got this book downstairs. Excellent book. It's an old book now. I mean, it was written back in the late 90s. It's still good information. Next. We talked about this one, the China study. So as you see, we can go from the Bible to spirited prophecy to our own people. Then too, we can start looking at T. Colin Campbell. We can look at, I go to research from Harvard a lot. I go to research from Mayo Clinic a lot. I go to Cleveland Clinic a lot and look at their research and see what is the latest they're finding. Based on the first stuff I read, I then base on which I go by. Does that make sense? Because there's still some stuff that's just, no, I don't do that, because the first book said, no, that's not real. That's not true. Next. Here's one. That's that plate I was talking about earlier. That's Kempner, and that's what their salad looks like in Africa. Africans do not, when I go to Rwanda, at least Rwanda, I hadn't found a Rwandan yet that will eat a salad. Won't do no salad. Now they'll do this, which is right pretty, but they will not put it all together in a salad. They refuse. But doesn't that look like a nice meal? That's the Duke diet for the noon meal. And they do the same thing for breakfast. They just put those 6 fruits around the outside. Next. So this is Duke University. So identify your strengths. Number 1, do you have strengths? Next. What's your location? Are you in the city? Are you in the country? Are you with a church like this church that can be a viable support system? Or do you belong to a church that has no interest in the health ministries? In that case, you got to do your own. You're out there by yourself. Or maybe you can find one other person to partner with. But you're very fortunate and blessed that you have a church that will buy into this here and do this program. Next, physical plant. You want to find, do you have a church or at your home? Next. Other locations in your area. Next. Could be the library. Next. Hospital boardroom. I belonged to a church in Virginia that, I don't know why, but years ago, just got a bad reputation in the community. Somebody made someone mad. And who's from the South? Don't make just us mad. Make us mad and the whole clan's mad at you. Right? That's how it works. I remember I was in academy my freshman year. I was on the payphone talking to my dad. He says, well, who's some people you met? And I'm naming off some folks. I named this girl's name. That's 2 years ahead of me. He said, don't have a thing to do with her. I said, why? He said, son, just listen to me. And you know how those old dads were, just do what I told you. Okay, yes, sir. Years later, I found out why. Because years before, when he was a little boy, his brother was in Pathfinder, and that girl's father's brother's wife had done something to his brother. Am I right, y'all? Am I right? When I went to UT, they taught us the East Tennessee mind, or the Tennessee mind is the hardest mind in the United States to change. The North Carolinian mind is the hardest mind, is the next hardest mind. But the Tennessee mind is the hardest mind to change. And literally, I don't know what that church did to somebody that spread across that whole city. but nobody had a thing to do with us. And so we could not do programs at the church. And so we did programs at the hospital boardroom, at the library. There's a church in Tennessee. It's Morristown, Tennessee. Nobody wants to have anything to do with that church. You know why? They sacrifice goats. The Seventh-day Adventist Church in Morristown, Tennessee sacrifices goats. No. Why? There's a goat farm next door. And they just assume that's the church's goat farm, and they sacrifice goats there. And that church still today has problems with people not having nothing to do with them because they sacrifice goats there. There you go. So, you may not be able to do it in this building. It depends on how your community accepts your building here. I was in does anybody know Alan Kennedy? Okay. Alan came to our church and he was teaching a soil assessment class. We do a how-to program I'll talk about. And Alan, we had done the soil analysis. We'd gone and he taught us how to get the soil, how to collect it. We'd taken it, we sent it off, and now Alan's teaching us how to read it, how to read the soil analysis individually. It's quite highfalutin. It's not your typical thing done by the ag department. It's very effective. And I'm sitting there waiting on a lady, and the lady's sitting here, and she leans over to me and she says, "You know what you're doing, don't you?" Well, I knew what she was talking about. But I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "You know what you're doing, don't you?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" She says, "I never would have come into this church. Never would have set foot in this church, and you got me in here with this class. You know what you're doing, don't you?" See? So, depending on how this church is viewed in the community, whether you can do classes here or do them somewhere else. Next. Fire departments. That's a good, safe place to do it. Next. Schools. Next. And then city or county advantages. Next, and we'll explain that. Well, let's go back. So city or county advantage. You can look at your city, look at your county, and look at what advantages you can tap into. You know, is it, do you have a Fall Creek Falls near you could go to? Or do you have, is there resources in that area you can go to? Next. Next. Okay, current personal strengths. Next. Do you have cooking strengths? Again, use the strengths you currently have. That you can learn more. I was at a church, and we would do evangelistic meetings, and we would spend anywhere from $3,000 to $7,000, $8,000 on evangelistic series. One person come, if somebody came. I've heard of it. Good. Mm-hmm. Mm. 10 talents. Yes. Okay, thank you. Yes. Sure. You don't want to confuse people. And you want to look at the times in which we live. And she says at the end, those who are translated will not be eating dairy or meat. When we, 20 years ago, went and bought the store, there was a huge pressure for Mary Lou to do cooking classes with analogs from the church. Analogs are a transition product, but the problem is most people don't use them as transition products. One, they're expensive. Two, they've got a lot of sodium and not that healthy. I remember Dr. Thrash says it might even be better if we just eat regular meat and some of that stuff. So Mary Lou refused to use analogs. And I can tell you that every cooking school Mary Lou's ever done, vegan or plant-based. I'm not vegan. I've got leather shoes on. Plant-based. There's been no complaints. Just make sure you cook it well. There's two kind of things. It's got to look pretty and it's got to taste good. And if it doesn't have color, it's not appetizing. Where does digestion start? In your eyes and in your nose. That smells good. Boy, it can start kicking on digestion. Your eyes, if it looks like pig slop, it ain't going to do no good. Our conference, when I was in Carolina, had us come down to South Carolina to the conference camp back in the 80s. All the health temperance people. And they fed us that weekend, and the food had the color of cardboard. And it didn't taste much better than cardboard. And we did not eat that kind of food at the time. I get back home Sunday night, and I told Mary Lou, I said, that ain't coming in our house. That stuff's nasty. So make sure that, and Mary Lou can answer these questions much better than I on how to make food taste good. But what you can do, an example, let's say you want to go to Bermuda. What is one of the best foods that Bermudans like to eat? Mac and cheese. Love mac and cheese. Mary Lou makes mac and cheese. The guys at the fire hall rather have her mac and cheese than the real mac and cheese. Figure out how to master it and make it taste plum good. Do y'all know what plum good is? Do you know the difference in plum good and plum awful? It's the exact opposite. If it's plum awful, if you say it's plum awful, you better start running. They're going to throw an orange skillet at you. But it's plum good. You got to be able to make that food really taste well. And don't start doing cooking schools until you can make it taste plum good. But you could start doing smoothie classes. Now, who doesn't like a healthy, good tasting smoothie? That doesn't take a lot. I teach kids in elementary school when I go in the school system how to make good tasting smoothies. So start out with easy stuff and then progress. We were at a church that we only would have one person maybe come to the evangelistic series. So we decided, quit throwing money away. It's just not effective, especially when we didn't have nobody come. So we took one whole year that we did not do any evangelistic work, but in church-wise. Yes, we did individual-wise, but as a unit church, none. Every month, one Sunday, for at least 4 to 8 hours, we would do training. It might be massage. It might be hydrotherapy. It might be cooking schools. We did several on cooking schools. How do you make healthy breakfasts? How do you make a healthy dinner? How do you make a healthy Thanksgiving or Christmas meal? How do you make a healthy picnic? How do you go and shop for food that's healthy? Take people to the grocery store. We took people to the grocery store and taught them how to shop, read labels. But we spent a whole year over that each month learning medical missionary things. The next year, we started doing classes, and that was one of the churches that people thought we were weird. And so we did it at the hospital boardroom. Hospital? Boardroom? That must be okay. If we needed a cooking school, we went to the library. They had a nice kitchen there. And then the people who did the classes were, you do a dish, and you do a dish, and you do a dish, and you do a dish. Because remember, the year before, you learned how to cook. Really good. You spent time at home practicing, cooking real good, whether you perfected bread baking or perfected healthy desserts or whatever it was. And then, on average, we would run 30-some to 50-some people coming. At the least we ever had was in the like 27, 28. But we do it once a month at one of these locations. And people would go and they come back, and we'd say, what would you like to have next month? We had a list. What would you like, what would you like to learn how to make? And then 3/4 of the way down, we'd have a little thing. Would you like to learn about how Jesus healed in the Bible? Now what did you have? You had a Bible study. And now you go out and do a Bible study with some people, because that's Bible study. I don't care if they're Catholic or who. If they're a Christian, they didn't mind learning about how Jesus healed in the Bible. So look at your personal strengths. Cooking, next. Athletic. Do you have somebody that's athletic? And, choose a person that's a role model and have that person do classes on how to exercise. You don't get a smoker teaching a stop smoking class. The same thing's true here. Next. Medical. Do y'all do dinner with the doctor? Y'all don't do dinner with the doctor? That's a popular one. It really is. And what Rhoda now does is sometimes you run out of doctors. So she'll have a person come in and she'll have them co-do it like Arvo will co-do it with somebody, or Mark Murray will co-do it with somebody, and that way a doctor's still there. Or it could be a doctor in pharmacology. We had a pharmacist come and speak on herbs. Boy, people came. What's that pharmacist saying about herbs? Well, they had a PharmD. They are a doctor. We've had physical therapists who had their PhD in physical therapy. We had a guy who has his PhD in exercise, and so they're doctors. But there's all kinds of medical things that can be done. Next. Physician, nurse, physical therapist, pharmacist. I was in a church in West Palm Beach, Florida, and this was back in '85, and we were near a Jewish area. There's a lot of Jewish people down there. And so our church, every month, I forgot what Sunday of the month, we would do free blood pressure screenings. Free. Jew goes well together. They were there. I'm telling you, there was a line further than from here. Almost twice as far as from here to that building over there. I mean, it was long waiting on us because it was free. But find out your community. Next. Massage. Anybody a massage therapist here? Anybody massage therapy? There's a great one. Do a massage therapy class on couples. Couples massage each other. Is that not good? That's a good thing. Yeah. You can teach chair massage. You don't have to get, crazy. Next. Hydrotherapy. I mean, every one of y'all here can teach. If that kindergarten girl can do hydrotherapy on her mama with a migraine, y'all can do it. Next. A health coach. Any one of y'all can help with that. Just take some learning. Next. Herbalist. I'm sure you've got folks here. And it doesn't have to be one of your own members. You just want them here to develop a relationship. It could be that old man back up in the woods. My GPS took me the wrong way last night. I have no idea where I come from. It's like up in our area. GPS runs people all over the place. A couple of weeks ago, we had GPS try to take 2 buses go over a mountain. Oh my, that was a problem. We had to take everybody out, turn the buses around. They would have gone off the side if they kept going, literally. But I don't know why my GPS did last night, but it took me up some road. I mean, I lost service, but fortunately I figured out, I looked ahead, and then it had no idea where it was. And I was just driving. And back up in one of them old roads could be an old man. or an old woman that knows herbs. Bring them in, have them teach that herb class. You know, we've had people at Greenville Church from the community come in and teach agriculture classes. They're not Adventists, but people came in. They came in the building. It might be a class on pruning. It might be a class on water irrigation or whatever. And there's someone in the community that's good on that. And people, it does two things. It does three things. You develop relationships with other people. Had this lady come to the store several weeks ago, she and her husband. They were passing through. They were from this city, I almost said it, this city in Maryland that's kind of this Mecca. She tells one of my customers, says, "Where y'all from?" And she says, "Oh, I'm from this city." "Oh, my sister lives there. Do you know her?" "No, I only associate with people who go to my church." Whoa. Does that not undo everything I've been trying to do? So when we do things with other church people, that don't mean they're up here preaching. But we do an event like that, people with people, you know, something like this, and you bring, well, they're not bad off. They invited me to come speak at their church. They're kind people over there. I'd never been to their church before. You know, they don't kill, goats. And so other people will come to listen to that person because they know that person. You see how it works? No, they don't need to be preaching up here. I agree with that. But you can get them downstairs teaching a class on whatever. Next. Could be organizational classes. Next. There's a lady in our church that she's a banker. And so she came and taught classes on how to do personal financing. Well, she's a reputable banker that a lot of people go to her bank in Greenville. People know her, they respect her. She is one of our members. But when their banker offered them personal banking skills at free, yeah, I'll go take them classes. We had people come. Next. What are the needs? What are the local needs? Next. Look at church member needs. It says, point the sin-sick soul to Christ. Was that girl correct that churches are only for perfect people? No. Are we sin-sick souls? Do we have members that are sin-sick souls? Do we need to also go help our own church members rape the yard? Or family? What are the local needs? Neighbors. Are there neighbors that may have needs? It may be health, but it doesn't have to be just health. Some way that you can go help that person. There's a guy that lived in our community. He actually was a physician. Went to Loma Linda. He decided he was tired of being a doctor. He went to SMC and started teaching math at SMC years ago. He liked teaching math more than being a doctor. He retired, lived up in the mountains of North Carolina, and every time he heard a chainsaw crank up, he lived up on a mountain. He did chainsaw ministry. There's a chainsaw. Go grab his chainsaw. I think that's over at old Henry's house. Head on down there. You need to help Henry cut wood. See how it works? Breaking those barriers down. No, they're not mean people. They don't eat like just rabbits. They're normal people. Next. Friends. Next. Co-workers. The key is figuring a way to develop friendship relationship. Friendship relationship, trust, giving us a chance to point people to Christ. But Walt, they're good Baptists. It's okay. But the more you show them Christ, the more they are to understand what else you want to teach them. Does that make sense? Next. Make a survey. But never, never, never do a survey if you're not going to do it. You lose ground. If you want to make your employees mad, do an employee survey and not do anything. They're going to say that, they're just hypocritical. But do a survey of the community. What would you like to learn? What kind of courses would you like to have? What needs do you have? There's a theory in business and in healthcare marketing called show up and throw up. Show up and throw up. That's when you as a healthcare provider go to another healthcare provider and you say, this is what you need our entity to do for you. No. Here's what we have. What can we do for you? Don't go tell a healthcare provider what. Yeah. You just don't, that's not good marketing. Find out what people need and then do it. Next. It could be neighborhood. Next. It could be the city. Our church in Kernersville, North Carolina, as you can see, my work carried me all over the place fixing problems. I was in Kernersville, and our elders went to the city mayor and said, what needs does this city have? Here's our specialties. We have physicians, we've got plumbers, we've got electricians, we've got, people can rake yards. What are the needs of people in Kernersville that our church could help with? What do you think he said? Nah, we don't need you. No, he was glad. He was glad someone was willing to help because he knew that people in the community had problems. And so he told us what needs there were. Do you think he's more prone to accept our help when it's his recommendation? Yes. Yes.
I did a survey in the youth club. We were doing a basketball camp, which I was just like, we had so many people come. And when I asked them what they needed for their children, because it was so people, they were so happy to say, I would come if you did this, or I would come if you could do that, and it was really practical things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually, we're putting together, for those who don't know yet, an outreach program for young people in our community over the following year. And we're putting some of those ideas into that. So it's really amazing that how vulnerable people will be when you ask them and those who need.
Yes. How many girls don't know how to iron? Iron?
All of them. Literally.
Do you think girls know how to iron now? No. What if you had an ironing class for the seniors in high school? You want to catch you a man? You might need to know how to iron. What about for the fellas? A chainsaw class. How to fix a lawnmower. Y'all guys know that if your small engine breaks down, you're looking at weeks before you can get it in. If you had a small engine class, small engine repair class, you'd fill the room downstairs. You would. I think there's just so many things out there they don't know anymore. Bread baking. Our church does bread baking classes. We do artisan bread baking classes. We do canning classes. We do what's it called? Dehydrating classes. Teach how to do dehydrating. We even had the funeral home come over, and we did a class on how to prepare for a funeral. And people were interested in that. That's not something you want to wait till the last minute. And they gave tips of what you can do to prepare for that so that as an older person, they didn't cause as much challenges to their family. And we had older people come to learn what they could do to take that burden off of their family. Next. City leaders, elected or businesses. You can go to businesses and ask, What do your employees need? Is there anything we can offer your employees? A marketing director, no, I'm going back up. An HR director is foolish if he is not interested in classes for his staff that is not going to reduce his chance of injury. Whatever, injuries, or sickness, whether or just because the more he wants to get that experience mod down. It's called an experience mod. And if you have healthier employees, you're less risk to have a work injury, a job-related injury. And he wants a good experience mod to make him look good to management. And so if you can show his employees how to be healthier, he's interested in that, or should be. Or if you can show him how he can get better insurance premiums by lower their percentage of diabetes, lower their percentage of heart disease, have smoking classes, whatever it may be, to lower that cost of insurance, that makes him look good. It makes the company look good, both corporately and to the employees, because it's more affordable. Next. Next. The how-to classes, I've been talking about that, how-to classes. We do a lot of how-to classes. We have how-to classes on, it may be on stamp collecting. We have how-to classes on knitting. Jeremy Arnold, he's a great photographer. You probably noticed his photography. He would do a month-long photography how-to class and teach at no cost people how to be a photographer, how to take pictures, not be a photographer, but take pictures. We've had coin collecting. We've had crocheting, knitting, all kinds of crafts. You just got to think of all these kind of things that your church can do. What's that? Oh, yes, Bible memorization. We did that one. That was a popular one, yeah. And so your community gets to know your church as a how-to church. If you want to write a book and be successful, write a book on how to, because people want to know how to. That's where they're going to YouTube now. Oh, yeah.
And so the homeschool community, they're looking for classes to teach their
They are.
They're looking for an opportunity to
It's true.
enroll in this.
Partner with the fire department. Yes, they may go into the school system and do in October fire prevention, but for homeschoolers, they're not there. So if you in October do fire prevention classes here for homeschoolers, there's a venue.
I happen to know that there's a lot of homeschoolers in this community.
There you go. That's huge. There's children. That's right. We used to do a class called Camp Health. Camp Health up on our mountain. And where did we do it? We did it at the fire hall in the pavilion. Outside. Until it was wintertime, too plumb cold, and we'd do it inside at the fire hall. But we did it 2 weeks a month, and we did it for several years. And we started teaching it, and the preachers in the community, they came to me and said, "What are you doing? Are you trying to steal our people?" "No, sir." I said, "We're just having classes for kids." I said, "You know them books at the doctor's office that are blue? Bible story books?" "Yeah." "We're just teaching about David and Goliath and that kind of thing. And we're teaching them skills about being bullies, being kind. We're also doing some nutrition classes." "You okay?" "I'm okay with that." We would run easy 30, again, up to 50 people, kids coming to that. And then who wanted to come? Moms. Because the kids were going back telling them. And what we would do is, Ashley, my daughter, she would read a story out of the Bible stories. I would do a class on herbs, and if we could walk out there and find them, we'd go out there and walk and show them mullein, or show them dandelion, or show them comfrey, or plantain, and we would talk about the medicinal benefits. I teach them something on hydrotherapy, some basic little hydrotherapy thing. Mary Lou would do a class on cooking. It's Sabbath morning, so you got to be proper, but something basic on healthy nutrition. And then we'd feed them. And then the mamas wanted to know, well, could they fix something to come? Well, that could be dangerous up on the mountain. It might be ham hock. And so Mary Lou would say, yes, let me show you. And she'd give them some recipes on some simple things. One time we did, how many of y'all know what kudzu is? So we did a kudzu day. Mary Lou did kudzu lasagna. It's not as good as spinach lasagna, but it's food, very nutritious. And so those classes were very, very popular amongst the kids. We'd drive around, pick them up in our car, bring them to it. The parents would come. We did it for several years, and finally my kids said, we'd like to go back to Sabbath school full time. Where's your mission field primarily? A home. And so we stopped doing it, and we went back to church. We were going to church every other week, and I wasn't touring like this then, out speaking. And so they just want to be at Sabbath school every week, and I'm okay with that. Let's do that. And so we quit doing it, but it was very effective. And you could do, a camp health here, and the kids come in and learn just simple things like that. All kinds of how-to classes. And I think the homeschooling is a huge, huge. Look at all the talents that your members have, whether it's professionally, hobby, or just what you've learned in life. And you could teach all kinds of classes to them. Or you could be a venue for others to come in and use you, like the fire department come in and do fire prevention in the fall. And then in the spring, you can do one called wildland mitigation. Tennessee is in the top 3 states in the United States for potential wildfires. We're in the top 3 risks in the United States. That's the fire department. Or it could be the fire department, or it could be the Tennessee Forest Service. Where's your nearest Forest Service? Okay. And so that's a good thing from the standpoint of grants for me. I'm getting a grant right now because of that issue for things that I can do for preventing wildfires through wildland mitigation. But you can take those kids out, and you can have the Forest Service come here, take the kids out in these woods, and show them how to do wildland mitigation to get rid of those fuels out there that make you more prone to, at risk from a wildland fire. And the Forest Service would be glad to do it. I'm sure I can say that. And all those homeschool families come, and that local forester can teach that. Yeah. Next. And put it in the paper. Put it on your Facebook. Just say, this is coming up, and people are saying, boy, that's an active church. They're doing something there at least once a month, if not more often. Again, how-to classes. Again, we do all kinds of cooking how-to classes. Next. Canning, keep going. Gardening, all kinds of gardening classes we do. Soil analysis, as I said, just all kinds of gardening classes. Go ahead. Small engine repair, mechanic work, keep going. Crafts, keep going. Budgeting, next. Simple plumbing. Any of y'all plumbers? No plumbing? There you go. We got a plumber back here. Teach a single mom how to do some basic unclogging the sink or the toilet or whatever. Or maybe, how about the senior boys? Them boys need to know what to do to be a husband. They do. They need to man up and be a man. And so if you had classes for girls to be a lady and classes for boys to be a man, and your men teach the boys and you ladies teach the girls, there's a huge need for that. Mamas are glad to send their kids to I would think. Now, some of them too strung out on drugs. Grandma's taking care of them. I got a lady who comes in, she's a great-grandmother raising her great-grandkids because her child and her grandchild are in jail or prison. Next. Again, health concerns, next. Stress, that's a great class. #1 diagnosis in America. Who doesn't have stress? Do a class on stress management. Easy class to do. You're not going to get in trouble on that. Here's a key on teaching classes. And this is one of the most important things I'm going to say in teaching this class. Do not be prescriptive. Now, your docs can be prescriptive, but you can't. You're just educators. You're teaching physiology. That's all you're doing. You're an educator, and you won't get in trouble if you're just educating physiology. You tell them what you do. But if you need to get prescriptive, these folks here need to be the ones being prescriptive. Next. Smoking, you can do smoking classes, vaping classes. I like doing addiction cessation classes now because it's just more than just smoking. It might be drinking, it might be drugs. You might need a little extra help on drugs. Yeah, they could do it, you could do it. You could have members that could do it. Where was I? I don't remember if I was in California or Texas. And this lady asked me, she says, "Can I take your addiction cessation class?" And I said, "What do you do?" She says, "I do Bluebell ice cream." Y'all heard of Bluebell ice cream? I'd never heard of it until I went to Texas. I know Breyer's real good, or used to. And I said, "Well, how much you do?" She says, "half gallon every night." I says, "You can take the class." And so she took the class. It was an addiction cessation class. And she told me, she was an Adventist, and she said, "I believe God has told me I will not go to heaven if I don't get over this addiction." I said, "You better get over it then. If God's telling you that, you better get over it." So she came to the class. She was successful. I introduced her to a champion juicer, how to make ice cream in a champion juicer. I taught her how to do moderation, and she did well. I mean, it can be coffee drinkers. It can be, there's all kinds of addictions people have. And so it can be in general, addiction cessation. And it's very similar how you teach it. Next. Diabetes. Do a class on reversing diabetes. Next. That's a big one here in Tennessee. A lot of people got diabetes. It's easier to reverse diabetes than it is toenail fungus. It's true, yes. Where do they live? Oh, okay. So it's a little ways from here. You reckon you could get them up here? That's a great class. People are wanting to know that. Yes. Now she's tapped into two very, very good markets: homeschooling and preppers. Preppers are a whole different animal. They are. But what we have, they're interested in it. And they do. Preppers are interested in classes like that or other classes that you can teach in medical missionary side. And it's a huge, and they are, they have passion for what it is. Sure. Yeah. You know, people are like animals. I was working a wildland fire a couple years ago. Trees had fallen over and took out some high power lines. Started fire, and we were there. And guess what ran out between us? Black bear. Didn't bother us at all. She was getting out of there and just run right out between us. Didn't even pay us no mind. She was getting out of there. Animals know when there's a problem. Essential oils. Do cats know when to leave the room? They do. They'll go, that ain't right, and they go to another room. People, they know something's going on. They don't know what maybe, but they know things just ain't right. And they're waiting for us to tell them what ain't right and what they need to do. You know, we're in the time of ochre, y'all. People are ripe to hear what's wrong, to help for us to tell them. And we just need to step up and help them people, or we'll miss it. She says, you know, if you don't, they may lose the ability to hear the gospel. Next. Blood pressure, that's an easy one. Next. Cholesterol, that's a real easy one. Weight loss, what's the number one desire out there for people at the first of the year? Weight loss. People, that's a big New Year's resolution. Do a weight loss class. Next. Digestion, a lot of digestive issues out there. Do a class on digestion. Next. Depression. World Health Organization, we know right now stress is the number one diagnosis in America, but WHO says that depression will soon take over as the number one diagnosis in America. Depression. Next. Next. You can go into your public schools. I go into the public schools every month, and I teach the 8 laws of health. I could not speak about trusting God. I would just have to say to the kids, pull out your money. Now, what's every piece of money say the same on it? I couldn't say it, but the kids could say, in God we trust. And I'd say, well, there's these doctors that found that if you have that, it helps your health. And the teachers would get real concerned when I started that I'd say that, because we weren't allowed to say it. But in 2018, Tennessee made a law that every school in the United States, elementary school at least, K through 8, has to have that sign, in God we trust, in a prominent location in every school in Tennessee. And so I can now talk about trusting God. Teachers aren't scared because it's law that has to be there. And so now you can go into that school, and I'll take a law each month, and I'll talk about a law. Whether it's nutrition, exercise, whatever. This month I talked about exercise. I'll take food for the kids to eat. This month I took oranges. Let me tell you what, it's so much fun. I have so much fun there. And so I took some oranges, and so I'll get the oldest girls or guys, because they weren't paying attention, because they know everything, because they're in 8th grade. And so I'll get those guys to help me. And so there's these 3 girls that were helping me this month. And so I'd cut the orange a little so they get the finger into it so they could peel it. And they'd peel it, and they peeled pretty good. And I'd have them break in half and put it on a napkin. They'd go around and hand it out to all the kids. Now, where we live is probably similar to y'all. There's probably kids in this area that don't have a lot of money. And this one little girl, she said, boy, I sure would like to take a couple of them home. We used to go to another school, and this little 4th grader boy had a sister that was in 1st or 2nd, but he had another sibling that was home, and he never would eat our food that we fixed. He'd put it in a towel and put it up. We found out he was taking it home to that other sibling that didn't have much. His mama was just she was not a mother to them. He was the mother to those two younger children, and he was 9 years old. And so once we realized it, Mary Lou would fix food and send him extra so he could enjoy the food with the rest of the kids, and she'd send food that he could take home to that other sibling. But this little girl, she says, could I, and she's real scared to ask me, and she says, could I take another one of them oranges with me? I said, let's see where we are. At the end of the class, I handed her about 4 oranges. I said, well, could you take these home for me and take care of these for me? She got so excited because I don't know what she needed them to go home for. It could have been, who knows, but she was so glad to take it. And it's just an opportunity that we can help those kids in need. One little boy, I had a pineapple. He ain't ever seen a pineapple before. I turned that top off and eat that thing with spiky things on the outside. He had no interest in that. So I cut it open. And I called Angie, who's over the program that I do in the schools. I called Angie over. And I said, Angie, see if you can help me here. This little boy needs to taste a pineapple. He'd never tasted a pineapple before. I have kids that have never tasted avocados before. They don't even know what an avocado is when you show it to them. And so it took about 2 minutes of coaxing, and finally she said, just a sliver. He put it in his mouth. He goes, wow, just real loud. Wow, that is good. He had no problem eating the pineapple. But you can do so much going into the school system helping those kids by teaching them just basic. Don't get highfalutin teaching real high science. I mean, we're talking kids here. Teach them horse sense. And my goal is not to teach them food that we eat for Sabbath after dinner, food like we had today that's all highfalutin stuff, or Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner, something that they can go home and they can fix at the house when mom and daddy may not be at home, or that they can fix themselves. And that's my goal. Next, churches. Churches are glad to have you come into their churches and teach health. I go into other churches and I teach on health. And it's a way that you can get exposure into other churches and they can know about you and say, oh, by the way, we got a healthy smoothie class coming up in a couple of weeks. Would you like to come? Everybody wants to go to eat smoothies. Next, businesses. You can go into businesses and help businesses with classes. I've gone into Ford. I've gone into, Mary Lou and I go into Bush. Y'all know what Bush beans are? They're made where I live. I go over there every year and teach over at Bush Beans to their staff. Next. Organizations and clubs. You might go and speak at the Rotary Club, the Lions Club, the whatever, or go to different organizations. Next. Assist local physicians. We had a meeting recently in a health ministries class, and one of the physicians says, listen, I got a place downstairs in my office that I could teach classes. So he offered to the other physicians in the county that they could come and we could teach lifestyle classes at his office downstairs. He's actually an optometrist. If a physician has a patient that's hypertensive, does that physician have time to teach lifestyle health? Where I live, they have, on average, they tell me 6 minutes. Where I live, people tell me that when they go to their physician and say, Doc, I got problems with my diabetes. Okay, they talk about the diabetes. Okay, Doc, my blood pressure is having some problems. We need to make another appointment for that one because we don't have time for that one today. That's how busy these docs are. They're trying to see 40, 50 people a day in their office. So give them a relief. Do classes here, do classes at y'all's office, whatever, to where you could teach classes on healthy nutrition, healthy exercise, that those physicians can refer to y'all, and y'all could teach those classes. Next. Next. Community Service Center. We have a community service center, like a Dorcas. We do a lot out of our community service center. Next. You can go to the local health food store, do classes there, or they could come and teach classes here. It's a way you can get another one in here. Next. Restaurant. Or you could have one of your members start a health food store. One of your members start a deli. Just start simple. Start a deli or a restaurant. Next. Spa, massage, and hydrotherapy. Someone open something like that. It's a little difficult in a community like this with resources. Next. A lifestyle clinic. Remember the little doctor up in what's the name? Wasilla. I have a hard time with that name. Wasilla, Alaska. Remember the little doctor, looked 12 years old? And people come to her. She's got a little lifestyle clinic, and people go to her to get off their medications. And the church members can send people to her. Your friends talking about, yeah, I'm having all these interactions with my drugs, and I just wish I could get off these drugs. You hear people talk that way? All the time. Say, listen, we got this little doc here. Send them to your local folks. Next. Community supported, we talked about this morning, community supported agriculture, CSAs. Y'all could do that. Next. Local garden. Some churches have a local garden where the community can come and make a garden, and they can do gardening at that church. Next. Senior needs. Next. It could be medical missionary health needs. Next. It could be lawn care, mowing, raking. Next. Taking them to the doctor's visits. Next. Shopping. And as you take them shopping, this is almost like home health. Home health is the easiest, it's the easiest way to do medical missionary work in healthcare. You can go in there and you can talk about nutrition, you can talk about exercise, you're not bound like you are in a doctor's office or at the hospital. You can help these people. And so when you take this person shopping, can you talk about Jesus? Can you talk about that smoothie class that the church is getting ready to have? Yeah. Next. House care. You could help them with house care. There's so much needs out there. Next. Reading. Oh, there's some good books I know you could read to them. Yes? Desire of Ages. Steps to Christ. Next. Make a plan. Number one, what did God impress you or your church to do? Number two, what are your strengths? What are the needs in the community? Study, study, study. Learn. Number two, if possible, get a partner if you're going to do it yourself. A lot of times, a partner can help you. They may, Mary Lou's helped me several times. Remember Wasilla. I'll go places and she'll remind me, no, you said that wrong. I might get tired and say it wrong. You can help each other out. Or you can pray as the other person is speaking. Start slow, but with quality, salvation is at hand. We started a deli a number of years ago at the store. We wanted to do a deli. A fellow, one of our customers, came in one day and he says, I'm retiring as a GM, general manager, he worked at Cracker Barrel. And he said, you've talked over the years about doing a deli. He says, I'm retiring. Would you mind if I came in and helped you start that deli? Whoa. The general manager of Cracker Barrel, there's not that I like the food that he does there, but does he have knowledge? Yeah, he has knowledge. So I said, sure, come help us. So he came in and he says, okay, we're going to start with just 3 smoothies. That's it. You pick the 3, but that's all we're going to do. Oh, we had all kinds of stuff we wanted to do. Nope, we're starting with 3. And he said, and make them pop. taste-wise. Look good, taste good. So we played and played, and finally we came up with the 3 top smoothies that we thought would pop. Opened up, we started with 3. We went to 14 smoothies. We went to all kinds of food in the deli. But we started small, and we kept growing and growing and growing. Don't start out big and get overwhelmed. Start out small with what's reasonable and obtainable. Whatever you do, start out small, that you're not going to fail. Why? Salvation's at hand. And do what God, the medical director, tells you to do. I encourage you to ask God what to do. It's so important as you look to put a program together. Any questions?
How do you get into, you mentioned the school system, businesses. If you have a methodology, a form letter, how do you go about getting in there?
I can tell you what I did. I was on the county health council. So I asked the health council president, I said, will you partner with me to go to the school superintendent, and we go in as the health council and the mustard seed, that's the name of our store, and go in together. Well, they never came in with me. You know, it was just, and I didn't want them to, but it was a mechanism by which I could get in the door. And then that was back in 07, 08, I think, when we started. We're still doing it today. So, businesses, get your program together. And then go to a business and say, you know, would you be interested in a class on stress management? Would you like a class on weight management? I've gone in and done classes on, I actually done a full lifestyle program with them. I go in, one they like is have you done the Breezeville Bellet program where you type in the computer and it gives you your health age analysis? They like that one. And so that's a way that I can do the health age analysis, and then I can say, based on this computer score, you're this age. You get a lady who's 40, 50, and you can show her how she can go back to 29. Tell me how. Yeah.
Another place that we went into in college was the Tennessee housing, because they were making an initiative where no one was allowed to smoke even on their campuses.
Sure.
And so we went in and did stop smoking
Absolutely.
for their tenants.
Yes. And ask God, God, what would you have me to do? Or like I said, go to your city, go to your housing authority, go to places and say, here's some things that we can do. How can we help you? Any other questions? All right. There was a request for some question and answers. Do we want to do question and answers? Yes, ma'am. Pardon? Yes? Here's what I would start with. I would start with the basics. If I had a piece of sandpaper and I was rubbing my arm, and you came up and said, honey, can I put some medicine on it? And I said, oh yeah, I plumb tore the hide off of it. Yeah, put some medicine on it. And you put medicine on it and you leave, and I go, and you come back, oh, that's looking even worse. Can I put some medicine? Oh, it's really starting to hurt. Now put some more medicine on it. You put medicine on it, you leave. Is it going to heal? You want to look to see what in your lifestyle could be harmful. As we talked about earlier in the last class, or you get something very important for the brain. is look at your breakfast, look at your dinner, look at your supper, look at your water consumption. Water is very important. There was a doctor at Loma Linda. His name was Dr. Walter Strachan. Amazing guy. He was a psychiatrist. The last 14 years of his career as a psychiatrist, he didn't give one medication. And water was huge. He would have his patients do a gallon of water a day if there was issues of depression. So yes, you can give electrolytes like trace minerals and things. Drink it slowly so you don't have where you're flushing it out. But at least do, for your size, a half a gallon of water a day. Very important. What time are you going to sleep? And a lot of people look at me and like, that's 8 laws of health again. But that's the key. Yes, we can look at things like, can B complex help? Back in 1978, there was an old doc at Florida Hospital. He told me for what you're describing, he said B complex was one of the best things he found. Lithium orotate, I learned from Neil Nedley, is really good for what you're talking about. Lithium orotate. Pardon? Okay. Now we're talking just the lithium, not the drug lithium. So, do you get out and do you exercise? Do you go out and walk during the day? Do you get sunshine? Fresh air, real important. Look at what time you're going to bed at night. It's difficult just to sit here and say what you need exactly without really getting in and studying what you got, but at least start the items we talked about before. And it's very easy for Seventh-day Adventists to say, I've heard that all my life. But I tell you that it works. And we're now seeing Harvard and these highfalutin places, that's their recommendation. It really makes a difference. Other questions? The best thing we found for fibromyalgia is address the adrenals. There's something called adrenosense. Stress blows the adrenals. Stress is the #1 diagnosis. Stress blows the adrenals. And when we find that, when I have, and it's mostly a female issue, but as ladies come in with fibromyalgia, there's something called adrenosense. One word, adrenosense. A and S is capital. Who's it from, Mary Lou? Natural factors. See, she helps me. Natural factors. You do 4 twice a day. Works better. Okay. 4 twice a day. She's speaking from experience here because she has fibromyalgia, and that's how she keeps it at bay. That's the company. Adrenosense. Yes. She was diagnosed as her gallbladder was the problem, and they wanted to take her gallbladder out. It was adrenal. She had fibromyalgia. And so we started researching and found that if we addressed the adrenals, that had a good success of helping with fibromyalgia. And if she will take her adrenosense, it takes care of the problem. Whether it's the shoulder pain, she was so bad that all she had to do was eat just 1 bite of spaghetti, and she'd start crying. The pain was so bad. Yeah, it was bad. Yeah. If you're looking at pain issues, and it's true as you look at fibromyalgia, look at your wheat, look at your corn, and anytime you look at autoimmune diseases, the best thing I have found to attack autoimmune diseases is juicing for 60 days. It's just, and I believe it's solely because you're stopping everything else that's been making you mad. And be careful when I say mad. I said that over in Sweden, and the lady thought I said she was mad in the head. I'm not saying you're mad in the head. And Dr. Agatha is the one that taught me this. She said, stop that stuff that's causing the problem. If you juice fast, and juicing is like Hyperal, TPN, total parental nutrition. It's in the blood within 15 to 20 minutes. Watch the documentary, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. Excellent. At University of Alabama, at Birmingham, their advanced cardiac team. If you go in there with significant cardiac failure, because see, the second major expenditure that the heart does is digesting food. And if you're a cardiac patient that's really, not doing well, and you eat this big old steak and eggs and whatever, potatoes and whatever, you can have a heart attack, because that's a big meal to try to, that digestion takes a lot of energy from the heart, like running a flight of steps. Well, at University of Alabama, their advanced cardiac team found that there's enough fats, proteins, carbohydrates, minerals, vitamins, all that in the juicing, and they juice those patients for 70 days. And it gives the heart a rest. But it's enough nutrition to treat that failing heart. And so juicing is amazing. It really helps. Vegetables, mostly vegetables. You can do a little apple. Can you go to the last slide? Oh, let's go to this one real quick. I wish to tell you that soon there will be no work done in ministerial lines, but that means if you're not a medical missionary, then you will not be able to spread the gospel. I don't care if you're a preacher or a doctor, who you are. If you're not doing medical missionary work, this says, the General Conference Bulletin, this is the same General Conference, it was 1901, that she told the group about what my granddaddy was doing. It was 1901. But it says, soon there will be no work done in ministerial lines. You will not be able to spread the gospel except through medical missionary work. So you'll be in the employment line working for God if you're not a medical missionary. Let's go to the next one. Okay, you can go to that QR code, go to our website, themustardseed.us, go to education, and go to, there's handouts there, and I've got juicing recipes. And so it has usually an example. Here's an example of Mary Lou's green drink. Her green drink has, say, 4 stalks of kale, 2 handfuls of spinach, half a bunch of parsley, maybe 2 celery. But if you're only juicing for a good period of time, you might want to do 4 stalks of celery, because of long-term juicing, you can get low on sodium. 4 stalks of celery will take care of it because of sodium in the celery. 1/4 of a cucumber, maybe 2 apples. 2 apples. She made, 40 drinks in one day this week. Let's say a half of a lemon, piece of ginger size of your thumb, might put some turmeric in it. That is her green drink. Her orange drink is 4 to 5 carrots, depending on the size, 2 stalks of celery, quarter of a cucumber, couple apple, the ginger, the lemon, the turmeric you want to. And then her red drink is the same as the orange, but she adds some beet to it. Be careful. A lady called me, and she said, why are you trying to kill me and my husband? I said, what are you talking about? She says, we're peeing and pooping blood. I said, what are you talking about? I talked to so many people I don't remember all day long. She says, you told us to juice, and now we're peeing and pooping blood. You're trying to kill us. I said, no, ma'am. I said, you put beet in there? Yes. How much beet did you put? She said, I put 2 big old beets in each one. I said, ma'am, you're peeing and pooping beet juice. So, yeah, so be careful on the beet. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes, thank you. See, I told you she helps me. That's why you need to go together. Nettle tea is huge. Nettle tea is the most nutritious herb in North America. Stinging nettle, that is. And we use it for hormones, female hormones. We use it for the adrenals, and that's why the adrenals. You blow your adrenals, you're going to mess up your female hormones. We use it for allergies. It's great for Tennessee allergies. We use it for, men tell us that when they use it for at least 6 months, their hair can start coming back to normal color. Pardon?
Just men get their hair colored?
Men have only ones tell me that, because I got ladies that use it long term and they don't tell me that. They use it for the hormones. One lady come in one time, and I was at the herb cabinet, and she says, "You got any stinging nettle?" And I said, "No." I said, "I think I'm out. Let me check." So I knew I did in a big part. So I squatted down and looked underneath the cabinet, and I looked and I said, "No, we're plumb out." She says, "Well, you better get it in quick." I said, "Why?" She says, "This county's going to make national news again. As many people as you and Mary Lou got on that stuff for hormones, we'll make national news again." It's huge for hormones. It really is. Or let's say osteoporosis, osteopenia. It's loaded with calcium. Yes. Stinging nettle. Yeah.
So she's having problems with insomnia.
Yes.
Her whole life she's gone to bed at 9 o'clock. I mean, faithfully. That's what we made fun of her most of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And now she has the same routine. She goes, her bedroom is with her sister, et cetera, et cetera. She's got blackout curtains on the windows. She goes and lays down. She'll be up to 1:30.
Is she thinking?
Is she thinking?
No thinking.
I don't think she's not thinking. She's trying to think.
Well, but you are. You're thinking.
She's trying to think. She's trying to count her sheep by
So you're from this area, right? This is how bad my spelling is. I went to a junior in high school. I realized that was spelled as T-H-I-N-K. All that time I'd seen it. You know, it's just... Okay, so you understand. So I have a problem. I'm ready to go to sleep. I'm plumb tired, but I can't fall asleep because this don't turn off. So she gives me ashwagandha. I'll take 1 or 2 ashwagandha, turns it off, and I go to sleep. I also use magnesium oil. Y'all know what oil is. And I put it on the bottom of my feet, a roller ball, and I rub it on the bottom of my feet. It transdermally goes in. It's excellent for, let's see here, restless leg syndrome. The number 1 cause of restless leg syndrome is magnesium deficiency. 75% is magnesium deficiency. Number 2 is dehydration. Number 3 is potassium. Number 4 is iron. And iron's going up because people aren't eating their green leafy vegetables, according to what the docs are telling me, their hypothesis. And so you can take it by mouth, but let's say you have a low bowel tolerance. You can rub that magnesium roller ball on your leg transdermally. It's going to go to that muscle even faster. It works great for leg cramps or Charlie horses. But for me, I put it on the bottom of my feet and it helps me fall asleep. There's the problem when we started 20 years ago at the store, our number 1 health issues were female hormones and stress. That was number 1. Number 2. Today, probably sleep deprivation is one of the biggest ones. We still do a lot with female hormones. We still do a lot with stress. Can be. Absolutely. It can be, yes. So how do you stabilize hormones? 3 ways I look at stabilizing. And everything is trusting God. You got to apply that to every one. I just figured y'all knew that. But that's the power. But for female hormones, what we find the best, obviously you got to have good nutrition. That's important. But the wild yam cream, we used to use HRTs like Premarin, pregnant mare urine. You're taking a pill of the urine of a horse to get her estrogen. That's what Premarin is. Yes. Then we would do like twice cooked soy milk. And twice cooked soy milk has 1 cup has as much Premarin as as much estrogen as 1 Premarin. So then we started looking at progesterone. Dr. James Lee in California started looking at progesterone cream. But then one of his associates, Cynthia Johnston, her research found that wild yam worked better. Wild yam, which is sweet taters, wild yam stabilizes progesterone. When you stabilize progesterone, you stabilize estrogen, and you stabilize testosterone. It is amazing how well wild yam works. Do a fourth to a half a teaspoon twice a day. If they still mince, when they start cycling, stop for 7 days. Start again. If they have 2 cycles a month, and we do get ladies in with 2 cycles a month, you plow through the second one using it, and then they usually will go to once a month. You can apply it here, you can apply it inner leg, you can apply it here, here, and Cynthia says even you can put it on the face. It's just tremendous of what it does. There's another one that is nettle. We use nettles for female hormones, like that lady said. We're going to make national news. Flaxseed. Flaxseed has phytoestrogen in it. We'll do 2 to 3 tablespoons twice a day. And Mary Lou's found a new item. The new item. Ester Sense. Yes. You know how you can get estrogen and stuff from this stuff? Well, this, what's it called again? Ester Sense, that's right, Ester Sense. Usually the ladies go and talk to her. But the Ester Sense is showing benefit for also aiding in female hormones. And juicing, yeah. We had a girl come to us. She's 22 years of age. She and her husband have been trying to have a baby for 2 years. Been to 2 different fertility clinics in Knoxville, couldn't get pregnant. Someone said, you know, see if Mary Lou and Walt can get you pregnant. And so she came over, and we did 3 weeks of juicing, 2 weeks of raw, and she's pregnant in 5 weeks. Nutrition, 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 nutrition. There's another product called Noni. Who's heard of Noni? And we call them Noni babies. The guy who taught me was Dr. Bill Sharps up in Virginia. And between nutrition and Noni, he's able to get gals who couldn't get pregnant to be able to get pregnant because they're just getting good nutrition with the need. And the wild yam cream, yes. Just a juice? Mary Lou would. Yes. Mary Lou likes juice, and if she can just plum juice, she'd plum juice. She feels better juicing. But we do need fiber. And so everybody's different. It's not a cookie cutter. Again, that's where I say, go talk to the medical director. When Dr. Thrash and we do classes, a whole long class, we do a week-long classes, and she says, if you listen to anything I said all week, fast, water fast, 1 day a week. Amazing what that'll do. Juice fasting is great, whether you do it 1 day or you did that, you know, however you want to implement that, but you do need some fibers. You really do. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you might find that you do better on a juice fast 1 day a week, and you won't find the weakness there. Or if you do a water fast, try putting 20 drops of trace minerals 3 times a day, and sometimes that will take care of that. Yeah. Barbara does. I don't, but you can. But if you do 30, 60 days, you want to up your celery from 2 to 4 to get that extra sodium. As you look at the Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, as you look at University of Alabama at Birmingham, they don't use the pea protein. But I do get people come in and they say, Walt, I think I need protein. Well, then do it. It's amazing the power of the mind. And was it you I shared? Who was that I shared with them about? With you, yeah. It's amazing how powerful the mind is. Yeah. So yeah. Yes. I like 3 and 5 day fasts. It's interesting what Jesus says. Jesus said, when you fast, He said, when you fast, not if you fast. So it sounds like an expectation. Any other questions? Yes. Yes, what we find for arrhythmias, nutrition is very important. I like using the Duke diet for nutrition or juicing, but I like the Duke diet best for that. We know that hawthorn is very good, but remember hawthorn has a half-life of 4 hours, so you need to use it 4 times a day. CoQ10 is an excellent item, 100 milligrams, 4 times a day. Okay, but you could do hawthorn berry. Okay, so you could do hawthorn berry 4 times a day. We know that iodine is good for arrhythmias, but I don't know if it has a corn issue for you. Yes, you could, or you can do it PO with iodine. It's Lugol. It's potassium iodide and potassium iodine. But Lugol solution is excellent for adrenals. Magnesium is great for Yes, there is. So let's go back to his friend Arvo. Arvo is going to be using for what he does, because Arvo mostly works with, brain issues. And so Arvo's doing something called Mag-Team, or 3 and 8? Yeah, at magnesium 3 and 8, which is also called Mag-Team. Great for what Arvo's dealing with. Magnesium can be a rifle, or it can be a shotgun, depending on which one you use. Like mag citrate is a shotgun. I like citrate. It just works really well for everything. But there's some people need, like Arvo, needs the rifle. But citrate just helps so many things on people, and they can go to bowel tolerance. Yeah. That calm is good, but that's glycinate. Calm? Yes. 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 Oh, yes, thank you. So when Mary Lou was having problems with her heart shut down on us 4 years ago. She went to ejection fraction of a 10-15 due to a chemotherapy drug she'd had 44 years before, adriamycin, which is called the Red Devil. We ended up at UAB, and that's where I got familiar with what they were doing down there in the cardiac unit. And one of the things that we found that helped, a physician, remember I told you the physician, or maybe I didn't. There was a guy that he was having restless leg, and he could not even take 400 milligrams of magnesium. And I just felt, I didn't think, it just didn't seem, he was well hydrated. He seemed to have plenty of potassium. He seemed to have plenty of iron. And you can check those on the labs. But he was really, he had a low bowel tolerance to magnesium. He'd have green apple two-step. You know what green apple two-step is? Well, what happens when you eat green apples? It gives you a two-step. So he would have a loose stool less than 400 milligrams, low bowel tolerance. So I called my friend out in Washington State, and he said use magnesium oil. And so we used that topically, transdermally, and it took care of the problem because he couldn't take it by mouth. Now, be careful with magnesium. They're learning, folks are learning, and the hospital is the one that taught me this, one of the lab guys at the hospital. Now the physicians who go to that hospital are validating it as I speak with them, and that is most magnesium tests are mag serum, but only 1.5% to 2% of your magnesium, according to the lab at the hospital, is in the serum. The majority of it is in the RBC, in the red blood cells. So they're saying that, and many times the mag serum isn't the same even. You'll make sure you have enough in the serum, but so the RBC is a much better, a much more accurate account of what your real magnesium level is. So what this doc taught me was also put it on the heart. if you're having angina or any heart issues. And so Mary Lou started using the rollerball on her heart and found it to be very beneficial, along with the far infrared. Far infrared was amazing on what it did for the heart. Why? She had low perfusion. She had 10-15 ejection fraction. I mean, literally, when you looked at when I was at UAB and I looked at the echo, this is how much movement we had in the left ventricle. That ain't nothing. Literally, nothing. They immediately put her on the transplant floor. Did not even allow her to be alone. They were afraid that she'd find out what was wrong and get excited and die. So as we used, what happens is because she had such poor perfusion with an EF so low, we used the far infrared light like a rifle, sauna like a shotgun, and that increases perfusion. What it does is it changes the water molecule in the blood cells, and so you have better perfusion. And so when she was using the light, using the sauna, it increased her heart's personal perfusion, the perfusion throughout the whole body. But it actually helped strengthen the heart, turbocharge what she had. Any other questions? Well, y'all, I think that's about it then. Come and close for us.
Yeah, I'll just speak up. On behalf of the Hohenwald SDA Church, I want to thank Brother Walt for coming and for bringing your wife and for all the information you've shared with us on that. We've been very blessed, and to have a group stick around this long shows the interest in what you're sharing. So we really appreciate it. Now,